Last week, presidential hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy gave an interview saying the U.S. should reduce aid to Israel. Israel should not get more aid than its Middle Eastern neighbors after 2028, and that America had no special commitment to protect Israel.
Right. And in a different interview with the Washington Free Beacon on Saturday, Mr. Ramaswamy went further, saying all U.S. aid to Israel should be cut off by 2028. In response to these comments, Newsmax host Dick Morris, who was just with us, wrote a column calling Ramaswamy a neophyte and amateur for making such a policy call.
Mr. Morris, whom we spoke to moments ago, pointed out the aid is part of the Camp David Accords that started in 1978 and continues to this day. Of the $3.8 billion in annual aid, 80% of the money is spent in the U.S. with American contractors. Israel is our closest democratic ally in the region. Dick Morris went on to write the claim that the U.S. had no commitment to any nation is ludicrous, adding President Trump believed in supporting allies and argues for America first, but never alone.
Joining us to discuss further, former Chief of Staff, National Security Council, and former CIA analyst Fleitz, plus Executive Director, CasePac, Bryan, Leib. Great to have both of you with us here. Fred, I want to start with you. These policy statements by Ramaswamy are being described as a serious mistake. Do you agree?
I do. I think that Ramaswamy has put his foot in his mouth on several issues, but this may be the biggest one. He's drawing a moral equivalency between Israel and its Arab neighbors. Now, right now, and Dick Morris mentioned this in his piece, the U.S. is required to give the same military aid to Egypt and Israel. But Ramaswamy seems to say we would give the same level of military aid to Lebanon, which borders Israel, and doesn't acknowledge Israel's right to exist. You know, I don't think Ramaswamy is anti-Semitic or against the state of Israel, but you have to be careful when you say things like this, because we know that Ilhan Omar and the Squad, this is the kind of rhetoric we hear from them. Ramaswamy needs to walk this back and strongly stand with Israel as one of America's most important allies, not just in the Middle East, but in the world.
Well, Ramaswamy has made other dangerous foreign policy claims, according to a lot of folks. He has said he would end our military commitment to Taiwan after 2028, after he, as president, gets the chip business out of Taiwan. Ramaswamy also wants to pardon WikiLeaks' Julian Assange and U.S. trader Eric Snowden.
Bryan, your thoughts?
Well, I want to stay on Israel for a moment here. And Fred started to talk about Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And unfortunately, Vivek's comments put him into the same ballpark as those radical progressives that do not think the state of Israel should exist. And listen, I've enjoyed many of Vivek's America First policies. I know Fred also enjoys America First policies, as do I. But what Vivek doesn't seem to understand is that America First does not mean America alone. When you look around the world, and especially in the Middle East, I don't think that we could find a more trusted, competent, and strong partner than the state of Israel. You know, when the U.S. and Israel are together, the world is a safer place. You're talking about two of the world's leading intelligence apparatuses, two of the world's leading air forces. So yes, when America and Israel are together, the world is a safer place to combat the world's leading sponsor of terrorism, the Islamic Republic of Iran. Vivek should know better than to make these outlandish comments, and I think he needs to walk these back immediately.
Yeah, I don't know whom he might have been trying to curry favor, Fred, but if you could address for a moment, from your experience, why Israel is important, which Bryan was just referring to. But there's a deep history that goes back to the creation of the country in 1948. But we have a presence in the Middle East, largely in an unfriendly area of the world, thanks to Israel. And maybe you could address it a little more depth than I'm able.
First of all, America strongly supported the creation of a Jewish state in the Middle East for Jewish refugees from Europe. I think this is a very important commitment, and it's something that we need to stand behind. But I think we also have to recognize that a strong Israel is stabilizing, deeply stabilizing for the region, and means that we don't have to send American troops to deal with conflicts that would happen if Israel was weakened. And that commitment is something that we need to stand behind. And I want to mention something about this chip thing. I'm glad you mentioned this, Bob. I don't think Vivek meant to say this, but the idea that he would go along with China attacking Taiwan after we secured our commitment of computer chips, I don't think Vivek meant to say that. But I do think this indicates he needs to do his homework better, and he has to get much better foreign policy advisors. I think he's listening to people who, frankly, are kooks.
Maybe he should be studying that instead of lyrics from Eminem.
Perhaps. Interesting. Bryan, before we run out of time, I do want to get your thoughts on that pardoning both of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, and also U.S. trader Eric Snowden that Bob referenced a little bit earlier. Your take on Vivek's comments that he would pardon both?
Well, listen, that's certainly not my wheelhouse and area of expertise. But you know, to stay on Vivek's comments about Israel, the biggest thing that I think I want to drive home here, and Dick Morris, for those viewers that have not read his op-ed, go read it now. It's a fantastic piece. But he makes the point that 75 to 80% of this U.S. aid that is given to Israel is actually spent here in America on American defense and military contractors. That's 20,000 American jobs every year that are benefiting. This aid is not a handout. And as Fred mentioned, it is supporting the America First agenda abroad when we support and stand with America's oldest, most trusted ally, the State of Israel.
Yeah, Bryan, I appreciate your candor there, but Fred, I am going to lob that same question over to you regarding the pardoning of Assange and Snowden.
Edward Snowden is a criminal who leaked information that probably cost American lives. He's not a hero, like Vivek has said. And Assange is a criminal also. And, you know, whatever information they may have revealed that people think is concerned to the violation of American privacy was more than outdone by the damage they did by U.S. national security. Both of them should be in a supermax prison for the rest of their lives. And Vivek does not know what he's talking about, especially when he talks about Snowden.
All right. It does sound like maybe Mr. Ramaswamy might need to do a little bit more research or change his advisors, as you suggested, Fred. But we'll be watching. Fred Fleitz, Bryan, Leib, thanks so much for your insights.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Well, around 4